To begin our lesson today, we are going to start with reading the story called Chipper Chips In. Now, as we read this story, we will also see our vocabulary words for the week. As we read through the story, be looking for the words that are highlighted in yellow, since these are our vocabulary words. Let's get started reading. Chipper Chips In. Winter was coming. The forest had turned from green to gold to brown. The animals knew the snow would come soon. They could already smell it in the air. So let's stop and think. Where does this story take place? I know. It says our story takes place in the forest just before winter. So our story takes place in a forest. Chipper the Chipmunk sat on a branch watching her brothers race back and forth. They have a great job, she thought. All day long they searched for seeds and nuts. They stored them in their big cheek pouches and brought them back to the burrow. Chipper wanted to look for food too, but her brothers didn't think she was big enough. How could a little chipmunk like you carry enough seeds to make a difference? Her oldest brother, Chuck, said just this morning. But if you could just give me a chance, Chipper said. Stick to what we know you're good at, Chuck replied. There's no sense in changing our system. So it seems that our character Chipper has a problem. What problem do you think Chipper has? Let's think about what Chipper's brothers do and what Chipper said she would like to do. Chipper's brothers collect nuts. And it says that Chipper wants to collect the nuts and seeds too, but her brothers think that she's too small. Chipper was a lookout. Her job was to watch for enemies. If she saw any predators, such as a hawk or fox, she had to warn them. Chipper knew her job was important. Still, she wanted to scurry through the leaves. And most of all, she wanted to help fill the burrow with food. Suddenly, Chipper's thoughts were interrupted. Chip! Chip! A chipmunk's voice called out. Calling all chipmunks! There is an emergency meeting at Chestnut Stump. All the chipmunks from the forest gathered around Chestnut Stump. They chattered about good places to find seeds and nuts. Then Chester, the head chipmunk, leapt on top of the stump. The crowd went silent. I have some news, he announced. The word from Deer Hollow is that the first frost will be here within 2 days. The chipmunks were shocked. They let out squeals. It is time to hibernate, but our burrows are not full, Chester said. Each and every chipmunk will have to collect from sunrise to sunset. We need the extra cheeks on the job. But what about our lookout? Asked Chuck. I have made a deal with the blue jays, Chester said. They will be our eyes in the sky if we share food with them. So from this point on, all chipmunks must focus on storing. Chip! Chip! The crowd cried, and Chipper's call was the loudest of all. With a flick of her tail, she scampered off with her brothers to their favorite seed collecting spot. Chipper started grabbing bundles of seeds with her tiny paws. Then she pushed them into her cheeks as quickly as she could. So what happened at the chipmunks' meeting? What did Chester say all the chipmunks must do? Chester says that the frost is coming, and so all chipmunks must help collect the seeds and nuts, even Chipper. Let's keep reading. Whoa! Chipper, I think that's enough, said Chase. You should go back to the burrow and drop some of those off. Not yet, said Chipper. She kept stuffing and stuffing seeds until her cheeks were bigger than her head. I've never seen a chipmunk store so many seeds, Chase said. Because of Chipper's amazing cheek pouches, the burrow was filled by sunset. When the frost came, the chipmunks had enough food for the whole winter, plus plenty to share with the blue jays. Chipper is the seed-storing champ, cheered Chuck. Next year, we'll all take turns as lookouts. I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to chip in before, baby sister. Chipper just smiled from cheek to chock-full cheek. What a great story learning about the chipmunks and Chipper. How do you think Chipper feels at the end of the story? Let's see. The last sentence says, Chipper just smiled from cheek to chock-full cheek. That could mean that Chipper feels happy. Do you agree? Now let's go over our vocabulary words that we saw in our story today. Chipper chips in. Our first vocabulary word that we saw was the word forest. Forest. Forest means woods or a place with a lot of trees. The wood forest was used in our story when it says, the forest had turned from green to gold to brown. Forest. Our next vocabulary word that we learned is the word pouches. The word pouches means pockets. The word pouches was used in our story in the sentence that says, they stored them in their big cheek pouches and brought them back to the burrow. Pouches. Our next word was the word enemies. The word enemies means people or animals that can bring harm to others. The word enemies is used in our story when it says, her job was to watch for enemies. The next word we learned was the word predators. The word predators means animals that hunt other animals for food. In our story, the word predators is used when it says, if she saw any predators such as a hawk or a fox, she had to warn them. The next word we saw was the word hibernate. The word hibernate means to hide away or sleep for the winter. The word hibernate was used in our story when it says, it is time to hibernate, but our burrows are not full. Hibernate. And our last vocabulary word is the word must. The word must means have to or should. The word must was used in our story when it says, so from this point on, all chipmunks must focus on storing. Must. Now, before we read our anchor text for our lesson this week, a cupcake party, let's talk about our target skill and the genre of our story. Our target skill for this story is story structure. A story structure is made up of telling about the setting in the story, the characters, and the events in a story. Now, the setting is when or where the story takes place, and the characters are the people or animals in our story. Our genre is fantasy. A fantasy could not happen in real life. So as we read through our story, A Cupcake Party, be thinking about animals who talk and act like people, or events that could not really happen in real life. In our story, A Cupcake Party, our essential question is how can you show a friend that you care about him or her? So be thinking about this question as we read our story, A Cupcake Party, written and illustrated by David McPhail. I miss my friends, Fritz said. I must have a big party. Try reading that sentence with me. I miss my friends, Fritz said. I must have a big party. Fritz had a list of friends to ask to his party. Fritz had a list of friends to ask to his party. Fritz went to ask Kit. I will come, Kit said. It will be grand. Read that with me. Fritz went to ask Kit. I will come, Kit said. It will be grand. Let's look back at our first two pages. Where is the setting of our story in the beginning? Where is Fritz at? Fritz is at his home. What clues in our picture tell us that Fritz is at home? Well, we see that Fritz is sleeping in a bed. We also see other things that are in a house, like a lamp, some clothes, and a rug. So Fritz is in his home. It also says that Fritz decides to have a party. Fritz says, I must have a big party. So what happens next? What does Fritz do? Fritz makes a list of friends to ask to his party. Fritz went to ask Jack next. Jack said yes. A party is fun, Jack said. Let's read together. Fritz went to ask Jack next. Jack said yes. A party is fun, Jack said. Let's look at our two characters on this page. Now, Fritz is our chipmunk, and Jack is what kind of animal? Jack is a dog. Let's describe what our characters look like. How would you describe Fritz the chipmunk? What color is he? He is brown. How else would you describe Fritz? He has a stripe and he is very fuzzy. Then we have Jack the dog. How would you describe Jack? Jack is also fuzzy and is white and brown. Fritz met Fran and Stan at a tree stump. Fran and Stan said yes too. Fritz met Fran and Stan at a tree stump. Fran and Stan said yes too. Fritz baked cupcakes to give to his friends. Fritz baked cupcakes to give to his friends. He put a small picture on everyone. He put a small picture on everyone. Fritz felt glad to see his friends. Fritz felt glad to see his friends. How can we tell that Fritz felt glad? Let's look at Fritz in this picture. How can you tell that he is glad or happy? We can see that Fritz is smiling and has his hands in the air. Take the cupcake with a picture of you on it, Fritz said. Take the cupcake with a picture of you on it, Fritz said. How do you think Fritz's friends felt when they saw their faces on the cupcakes? Look at the friends' faces. How do you think they feel after they see the cupcakes? His friends look happy. They are all smiling. His friends had a snack for Fritz too. His friends had a snack for Fritz too. What kind of snack did they bring Fritz? If you look at our friend the bear, he is holding an acorn. They brought an acorn for Fritz the chipmunk. Yum! Now we can eat and have fun, Fritz said. Yum! Now we can eat and have fun, Fritz said. Let's think back on our essential question. How can you show a friend that you care about him or her? Let's think back in our story, A Cupcake Party. How did Fritz show that he cared about his friends? When we look back at our pictures, we see that Fritz decided to have a party, invite his friends, bake cupcakes for them, even with their faces on them, and have them over. So how could we say that you can show a friend that you care about him or her? We could say that you can show a friend that you care about him or her by asking them to come over, by making them something, and spending time with each other. What are some other ways that you can show a friend that you care about him or her? Be thinking about this question. To end our lesson today, we are going to be completing an activity in our reader's notebook. You will need to turn to page 134 in your reader's notebook. Today we are working with final blends. This means we are listening for that final blend at the end of each of these words. Our directions tell us to name each picture. Write the letters that stand for the ending sounds. Use the letters from the box. So in our box, we have an assortment of letters that are final blends. So we have ND, ND, MP, MP, NT, NT, ST, ST, and SK, SK. So what we are going to do is look at each of these pictures, say the word, and when we say the word, we want to listen for that final blend. Find it in the box, then write it. So let's start with our first picture. This is a picture of a what? A hand. Say the word hand. Hand. What is the final sound you hear when we say the word hand? And. We hear the ND sound. And. And. So we are going to write the letters N, D, N, D in the blank for the final sound, hand. And. Now let's look at number 2. In number 2, we have a picture of a nest. Nest. What is the final blend you hear in the word nest? Nest. Nest. We hear the ST blend. St. Nest. So we are going to write ST in the blank for number 2. Let's look at number 3. On number 3, I want you to try this one. This is a picture of a what? A plant. What is the final sound for the word plant? Plant. Write the final blend in the blank. Plant. The final blend in the word plant is NT. Plant. Ant. In number 4, we have a picture of a pond. Pond. The word pond ends in what final sound? Pond. Pond ends in the ND blend. Pond. Pond. Now let's look at number 5. In number 5, we have a picture of a what? We see these a lot at school. We see a picture of a desk. Desk. Desk ends in the SK blend. Desk. In our last picture, this is a picture of a what? A lamp. Lamp. Lamp ends in what final blend? Lamp. Lamp. Lamp ends in the final blend of MP. Lamp. So let's go over our final blends that we saw. Hand, nd, nest, st, plant, nt, pond, nd, desk, sk, lamp, mp. Once you have finished completing your worksheet for today, you are all done with today's reading lesson. I'll see you later.